Welcome back. In the previous video we saw why is it not a good idea to place our model as a child component to some other component. Rather, we are going to place our model inside a top level element which is going to be a div with id model, which is going to be a direct child of our body. And we also saw that React portals allow us to break the usual flow and do things like this. So in this video, let's start coding it out and let's start implementing our first React portal. So let's have a look at a little bit of documentation first. So in the documentation, it's very simple. So this documentation is quite simple because they have clearly mentioned that we can easily create a portal by react dom.create portal, and just like react dom.render, it's also going to have a child and a container. So very good. Let's start coding it out. Let's go to our index.html and have a sibling div to our div with id root, and let's have something with like this, div with id model. So we would have to pass a reference to this as the second argument inside the create portal function. Perfect. So let me close this, and again let's create another component inside our components directory. I'm going to call it model. So yes, this is perfect. And again model.jsx. Well, I know some people call it modal, some people call it model. I'm not sure which is the correct pronunciation, but it's more about the concepts than the pronunciation. So don't go on the pronunciation. Perfect. So I'm going to import my React from React, and I'm also going to import React DOM from React DOM. Perfect. I'm also going to import the style sheet like this ./model.css. Very well. And I'm going to create a stateless function component which I'm going to call model. So let's name it model. And yes, I'm going to have some props in it because I want the model to be a completely controlled component. So for example, I want it to be a reusable component so that any other component can call a model and pass in the heading, subheading, and the paragraph and the link to the tutorial and so on. So this is just a sort of simple, you can say, component which can be very reusable. So perfect, this is cool. And now as you can see, we have to use react dom.create portal. Perfect. So I'm going to use that react dom.create portal, and as you already know, the first argument is going to be our JSX component or the HTML component basically. So I'm going to have let's keep it simple this time, model. I'm going to name the class name as model overlay. As you already know that inside every model there has to be a sort of overlay div and then the model container div. So anyways, for now let's just keep it simple, and I'm going to say it, I am the model. Perfect. This is cool. And as the second argument, we have to pass the container. So the container is going to be very easy. It's going to be just like we had this in index.js, document.getElement by id, same thing, document.getElement by id or query selector, same thing, get element by id, and I'm going to pass the id as model. This is perfect. So now as you can see, if I use my model inside my home.jsx, let's say I place it somewhere here or anywhere, it's fine, or we can even place it at the top, it's completely okay. I'm going to place the model here, and let's keep it like this for now. This is perfect. So now let's see one thing. Yeah, so it shows I am the model, and the best thing is if you inspect the element here, it is going to show you I am model inside model, and it's so basically this whole thing is not inside root. This is a sibling component to the root. So this was the whole concept. If you have understood this, you have understood the whole concept of portals. That it was as simple as that. So now remains the styling that you can do. I know that you are very well acquainted with styling. So yes, I know that you can do the stylings, but still let me help you with the stylings. So first of all, what I'm going to do is, again, we can still hard code the headings and all, so yeah, it does not matter. I'm going to use this props to have a function to close the particular model, to sort of call back for this close button. But anyways, let's first create this model component. Perfect. So I'm going to have another div inside this div, and I'm going to call it model container. Perfect. So inside this model container, we can have various things like we can probably, first of all, I would want to divide my whole model container into various sections. First one could be the upper section, second one could be the middle section, and third one could be the lower section. The upper section is going to contain the headings. The middle section, of course, I could have used the section instead of div itself, but it's completely up to you. These things doesn't matter too much, so it's fine. So upper section, middle section, and the lower section. Perfect. So inside the upper section, I'm going to have h1, and I'm going to say huge announcement. Perfect. And after that, I'm also going to have a sort of p where I am going to, basically I'm going to give it a class name of close. Basically this is the close button. I could have used button, I could have used an a tag or anything, but yes, I'm going ahead with the p itself, and I'm going to put a cross inside it using ampersand times. Perfect. So now that this is done, let's go ahead with our middle section. So inside the middle section, I have to put a sort of h3 where I'm going to say React mega tutorial is live. Perfect. I'm going to add a p. Do you wish to learn React? I'm going to add another p in which I'm saying I've published a completely free, let's make free in the bold, free tutorial. Let's copy and paste this from here. Yes, that would be fine. So yes, I've copied and pasted it from here, and let's have one more, and let's copy and paste this thing from here. So you can type in anything you want, so it's completely up to you. Perfect. So inside the lower section, again, inside the lower section, you know, we are going to have two buttons or two anchor tags, anything that you want. It could be, if you want, it could be anchor tags. If you want, it could be button. If you want, it could be p, anything. Let's just go ahead with a. So I'm going to say a, and then I'm going to click a class name, put a class name of, let's say model button. And for this specific, I'm going to say button red, because I want this to be red colored button, and I'm going to say close. Perfect. And then I'm also going to have one more where I am going to, so I'm using this a tag here because now I want to redirect it to some other website. I don't want it to be remaining here itself. So yes, otherwise I would have used a link component. So I'm going to provide an href, say http://theleanprogrammer.com/AAM. Perfect. I'm going to give it a target of underscore blank so that it opens in a new tab. I'm going to give rel equal to no referrer. Perfect. And I'm going to give it a class name of model button for the same stylings in as the above, but a button green for a green colored button. And I'm going to say start tutorial. This is perfect. So I have this sort of boilerplate ready. Now let's see what happens here. Everything will appear here, and yes, it's close and start tutorial, everything is appearing here. So now what we want to do is, the final thing that's remaining is nothing but a simple styling. Perfect. So first of all, I'm going to keep a model overlay. So as you already know, the model overlay is for the overlay. Basically the sort of background element should become gray, and it should basically add an overlay. So I'm going to make the position of that as fixed, and then I'm going to give it a z index of as high as possible. So let's say 99999. I'm going to give it a left position of 0 and top position of 0. Once again, I'm going to give it a width of 100%. I'm going to give it a height of 100%, full height and full width. I'm going to give it an overflow of, let's say, auto, yeah, if, Enable scroll if needed, because in small screen size it might scroll. So yes, overflow auto, and then I'm going to give it a background color of RGBA. So it's going to have some alpha value, black color with alpha value of 0.5. So it's going to look a sort of semi-transparent thing. Then I'm going to give it a display of flex, and I'm going to give it a justify content of center and align items of center as well, to align it horizontally and vertically both. Now that you can see it, yes, it is appearing on top of it. It's not going at the bottom. Perfect. So we have already done the first part of it. So the next part is model container, model hyphen container. So inside the model container, we would want to provide various styles such as the background color. So inside the background color, of course, we can provide something similar to white, but a little bit less, a sort of a shade of gray again, FE, FE, FE. Perfect. And then padding 20 pixels should be more than enough. Border radius should be let's say 2 pixels. 2 pixels is good for border radius. Perfect. We can give it a width of 80%, so it will occupy 80% of our width. And then we can give it let's say a box shadow. Of course, that's necessary. Box shadow, it's going to be the same as always. So yes, I'm not giving too much attention on the styling. So it's I just created one box shadow and I'm reusing it all over the place. So I'm going to give it 0, 0, 0 with an alpha value of 0.15. This is perfect. I'm going to give it a display of flex direction column, because you know we have to display it column wise. And I'm going to give it, let's say, a font family, although we don't need to give it a font family, but it's fine. Let's give it a font family of Poppins, and font style can be normal. Perfect. This seems very well. So now you can see we have almost done more than half of this. Now let's style the individual sections as well. So for the upper section, it's going to be like this. Display again flex box is super cool. So this is going to be row. Flex direction is going to be row, because we need to show this heading and the cross button in the same line. Perfect. So now let's go back and let's give it a padding of 10 pixels top and bottom, 0 pixels left and right. Justify content, space between. So as you can see here, why I'm doing this space between here is basically I want these two elements to be aligned at corners. So this will be aligned at one corner, this will be aligned at another corner, and if there was something in between, it would have appeared in between, and so on. So this is the meaning of space between. If you don't know much about Flexbox, don't worry, I have a full course on Flexbox. Just check it out. Go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/theleanprogrammer. Go to the playlist section and then check out the full Flexbox tutorial. Perfect. So let's give the H1 inside the upper section a margin of 0, because H1 by default has some margin. I'm going to give the close, so basically this cross button, as margin 0 once again, and then a font size of 1.1 em. Yes, that should be fine. And then on hover, it should be the mouse, the cursor should become pointer. Perfect. This is perfect, as you can see here. Or we can increase the size a little bit if you want, or probably we can increase it to 1.4. So this is just a hit and try. Like, yes, this is looking cool. Or if you want, I can go it beyond 1.4, and now it's becoming quite visible. Now it's looking quite cool. Perfect. So now let's come back and style our middle section as well. So inside our middle section, I am going to put some styling. Let's say display flex. Inside a flex direction is going to be column here, because we want to display column wise. Margin, let's give it a margin bottom of 20 pixels or around something like that. Now you can see it's becoming quite good. And now that this is cool, let's give every child component of the middle section some styling. I'm going to give it a margin of 5 pixels top and bottom, 0 pixels left and right. Now this is starting to become cool. Perfect. So let's style our lower section as well. Lower section. Perfect. So inside our lower section, we are going to display flex direction, is going to be row reverse this time, because you could go with row as well, but I'm going with row reverse because I remember that I placed the close button ahead of the oh, I see, that's why it's going wrong. So I placed my two buttons at the wrong place. Let me cut it out and paste it inside the lower section. So those two buttons should have been inside the lower section and not inside the middle section. So things do get wrong, things do happen wrong when we are coding fast. So you should always code, you should code fast, but you should always be careful of what you're writing. Let's give it a little bit padding of 10 pixels and 0 pixels. So I believe we should also give some height to our model container, right? That should be fine. I think we should definitely have some height, or let's think about it. We'll think about it later on. First, let's complete the lower section and everything else. Perfect. So now that we have the lower section ready, let's style our model buttons as well. So our model button basically are these two. So these will have a border. Let's say first of all give a border width of 0. We don't want them to have border width. Outline none, not this one, just outline none. Then border radius as 2 pixels. This should be enough. Box shadow, again I'll just copy and paste the box shadow from here. This should be fine, or rather let's type it out. Let's give it a little bit different this time. Box shadow, let's give it as 0, 1 pixel, 4 pixels, and RGBA 000 with an alpha value of 0.6. Perfect, this looks fine. And then let's give it a margin left of probably 15 pixels, and then let's give it a padding of around 12 pixels top and bottom, 24 pixels left and right. So it's starting to come along now. Perfect, this is cool, this is super cool. And now that we have the padding, let's give it a little bit of transition as well. So I'm going to give it a transition of background color 0.3 seconds. Perfect. Let's give it a color of again a sort of shade of gray once again, ECF0F1. This is starting to become super cool. Now let's give it a text decoration of none. Perfect. So now we have removed the text decoration as well. So now let's give the model button on hover effects. So I'm going to go model button on hover. I'm going to make the cursor as pointer. Perfect. And let's give it the stylings for green button or button green. So the background color is going to be #2ECC71. Perfect, this is so cool. And then again the button green on hover, and also button green on focus. On these two things I want to make the background color as a little bit darker, say 27 AE60. This looks perfect. Now you see this is coming along super cool. Let's give it some red. Let's give the styling to our red colored button as well. Button red. It's going to have the background color of, let's say, E74C43 or C3C. This should be cool. Yes, perfect. And now one final thing, button red. Let's just copy and paste this whole thing to save a little bit of time, and let's replace this green by a red. Perfect. And we are going to replace this as C0392B. Perfect. So now we have this whole thing ready. So now coming back to the height of this model, so I just saw that we did a little mistake here. So this should be align items center, items, and then it will do this. So align self was making all the mistake here. So align self was the culprit here. And now I can maximize the screen and see how cool our React model is looking. This is super cool. So yes, we can fix a little bit of styling that is present here, the margins. As you can see, let's have a look at this one. So this is having a margin of its own, so let me quickly fix that as well. So that is going to be present, so all these things are present inside the middle section. So inside the middle section, let's say where did it go, middle section, so I name this as margin section. So this middle section, and now this should fix it. So now this is exactly what we wanted. But now what's happening here is, even if I refresh the page, this is not going away. Even if I click the close button, even if I click the cross button, even if I click on the background, it is not going away. So now this is the second section of this particular video, where we basically want to close this model. So this is very simple. This is much more simple than you would have imagined. Trust me guys, this is so simple. So basically what we want to do it, first of all, let's go back to our home page. So inside our home page, first of all, we want model to be a controlled element. So what we are going to do here is, I'm going to have a state, assign a state to my home page, and I'm going to say show model, which is going to be a boolean with an initial value of false. And what I'm going to do is use my lifecycle method. So if you don't know what is a lifecycle method, you can check out my other React tutorials. But just a revision, basically component did mount is a lifecycle method which is going to run once as soon as this component is loaded. So let me tell you, let's console.log, home is loaded. So let's go to home, the console button, and let's refresh it. So as soon as the home page is loaded, it says that home is loaded. Now if I go to any other screen, let's say if I go to about, yes, now it's not going to see, now it's not going to say home is loaded, but when I go back, it's again going to say home is loaded. So that's what component lifecycle methods are for. This is perfect. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use set timeout to show my model after, let's say, 2400 seconds. Not 2400 seconds, 2400 milliseconds. So I'm going to use this dot set state and assign the show model to true. So what this is going to do is, this is going to show my model after 2.4 seconds, but I will also have to do a conditional rendering here. So what I'm going to do is, I am going to cut this out and I am going to place a sort of ternary operator, or we can just do an AND thing. So we can just use like this dot state dot show model. If this is true, if this is true, then it will go to the second thing, and here we can have the model placed. Perfect. This is so cool. So as you can see, if I refresh my page and wait for 2.4 seconds, it's going to show. So this is super cool. Now we have already done this. Now we just need to handle the close. So we are going to handle the close like this. I'm going to create a close model function. It's going to be an array function, and it's just going to be this dot set state show model as false. Perfect. So this is going to stop showing our model. How we are going to use this? We are going to pass on this show model as the props, not the show model, but the close model. Perfect. So it's going to be this dot close model, and let's go inside the model component, and this props is going to have it. So now what I'm going to do is, first of all, so let's do one thing. Let's change that to 1 second instead of 2.4, so that we are able to see the model quickly. Perfect. So now let's go back here and let's destructure close model from here. So now I'm directly going to use it. So for example, whenever someone clicks on the background, so this model overlay, just make sure you understand this very properly, that this model overlay is the whole background and the model container is just this much. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to click, whenever someone clicks on the model overlay, it should stop showing the model. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I am going to say close model. So yes, of course, instead of doing it like this, what I can do is I can directly pass on this here, close model. Perfect. So what's going to happen here, as soon as I click it, the model is going to disappear. Perfect. But the thing that is going wrong here is it has a major bug. So this is called event bubbling. So as soon as I click here, so even the child elements are a part of this only. So this concept is called event bubbling. If you haven't heard of it, basically what happens here is, even though I have assigned an on-click handler to this, and even if I click anything in the child element, so let's say this p tag. So this p tag in the middle section is a child element to, so this p is a child to middle section, and this is a child to model container, and this is a child to model overlay. So since I don't have any event handler for the on click of this, the event is going to bubble up to the parent component, then it's going to bubble up to model container, and then it's going to go here, and since here I have added an on click handler, it's going to run. So even if I click on the model, it's going to get closed. So you can fix this bug very, very easily just by adding a stop propagation. I'm going to add an on click here, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a function called call it e.stop propagation. That's it, as simple as that. And now you will see this, even if I click on this, it won't close, but if I click on the outside area, it will close. So just one last thing, let's add an event handler to our close button as well. So first of all, this close, so on click equal to close modal, and here as well, a on click equal to close modal. This is perfect. So let's refresh this, and close works. Let's refresh this, this also works, and let's refresh this, this also works. This is perfect. This is exactly how we wanted it to be. So we have finally completed our model container. We have finally completed our first, second, and third sections. I am so happy. We have completed 3 whole sections. We started off with the first section where we discussed all our designs. Then we went on to the second section, which was the React router. We understood the React router. Then we moved on to the third section, which was the React portals, and then we are finally completed our model as well. And now we are finally going to jump on to the fourth section, which is going to be implementing the cool designs. In the next video, from the next video, I'm going to start off the fourth section, and the only thing that is remaining now is CSS, CSS, and CSS. So in the upcoming 3 or 4 videos, it's going to be full of CSS. So if you don't like CSS, probably you can skip them, and since you already have understood the concept of React router, but I would definitely urge you to stick together with me and complete this portfolio, because I want you to have your portfolio and have it deployed as well. So see you in the next video where we start styling our remaining components. This journey is super fun and super cool and super exciting. Let's meet in the next section. Bye bye.